Welcome to our webinar on managing your business in uncertain times due to the coronavirus. Your presenters are Andrew Rose and David Duffy.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining, everybody. Today is for us an opportunity to share with you some of the stories that we've seen from talking to our clients and the processes we've been taking them through in what is certainly a very, very uncertain time at the moment. The format today is we're going to, as quickly as possible, without going too quickly, is to take you through the following agenda. One, to look at what is the story, why is there so much fuss about COVID-19, and what is the flattening of the curve, the current business impact we're seeing in our region, what phases do we anticipate business are going to go through, what activities do you as a leader do you think that need to do with your business, our methodology in helping businesses, the two-stage process that we take people through in scenario planning and then looking at our survival kit, and then talking about your short-term objectives, and we're going to finish talking about the funding announcement and questions that you may wish to have. That's the format which we had to go through. Andrew and I are going to swap between each other as we go through the presentation. So first of all, who's Business DNA, for those of you who don't know, and what do we do, and how come we're talking in this space? So Andrew, do you want to give us everybody a bit of an introduction to Business DNA?
Business DNA is basically a business that has been going around now for about 5 years, and that was fallen out from a previous business called Principal Focus. We basically aim to assist our clients, basically help them run their business and set out and achieve their goals and where they're trying to get to with their business and that side of it. We do from the general accounting compliance work all the way up to strategic level, strategic financial management, and a range of different services at that side of it, with a range of customers ranging from your sole traders and small business up to businesses that got, $40, $50 million turnover businesses. Our location generally covers us anywhere from the central west out into the western region of New South Wales, and we largely primarily concentrate on family businesses and small not corporately owned, but small businesses that are owned with multiple owners also in that regard.
Okay, thank you. What's going on with the COVID-19 and why is there so much fuss? So you'll see a reference to Emerging Futures, the website down below, and these guys run some pretty good commentary on actually what's going on. What's interesting about the graph in front of you is, and we keep hearing about the bell-shaped curve, is that the green line is the capacity of the health system to actually handle the number of complaints. So unless the government imposes these restrictions on isolation and restricting people from doing business, then the likely scenario, which they've seen in quite a number of countries around the world, is the big yellow bulge. And what all this restriction of our business activity, which is having a devastating effect on many businesses, is all about trying to make sure we don't have this explosion of people in our medical system and our medical system fall over. And the cost to the economy would be greater than what the government is currently expecting they're paying. So what's the real impact likely to be? They predict that what will actually happen, and you'll note down on the bottom of this graph that there are days out to 251 days, 251 days. But what they expect will happen is there'll be a surge, which we're currently in the middle of at the moment. We seem to be not rising at the same level of what's being predicted by that graph. By the way, the graph doesn't represent Australian numbers. It's just an indication of the likely trends. And we're actually not reaching the peak that is shown in this likely scenario. But I think what the impact is the fact that this is going to be around with us for a fair while. And so therefore we've got to develop strategies that help us get our businesses through this environment where the current level of restrictions are going to be are restrictive on us, but we could expect other outbreaks over the next 3 to 6 months. So I think many businesses fall into this this graph of this image of this poor fellow here. The economy is going against us. Governments are stepping in. Competition, in some cases, is going hard at it. Customers are certainly lost faith or withdrawn and followed the instructions of staying at home and aren't spending money unless you're selling toilet paper and tissues and those sorts of things. I hear that our big alcohol distributors are also now restricting the amount of alcohol people can take home because people are hoarding those resources as well. So not many businesses feel like they're in control. However, we think there are quite a number of situations that are going on for businesses. So Andrew, you might go through this slide and talk about how we see the current impact.
Probably what we have at the moment is probably businesses in different stages and the current impacts that it's having on. There's some businesses, no doubt, are able to actually grow and boom through this period and adjust accordingly through it. We've got some businesses that really haven't had much of an impact on them. Yes, they might have to have clients working from home, but they've, sorry, not clients, staff working from home, but generally they've been able to pretty well continue as normal, or, you know, they're not at the present time of where we're at in that stages. Where that goes to and how that changes is probably going to also depend on what their customer base is and what that's going to look like down that time. We have probably a fair few clients that are in this stage at the moment too, where the uncertainty, where are we going with our business? Where's it heading? Is the government going to actually shut down that we now can't do certain things further, which is going to affect our, you know, our supply chain, and therefore we really don't know what we can do. A lot of things still out of our control, and, you know, I think that's probably a lot of where people are the most worried in that regard in some ways. We've got some that are dramatically affected, virtually to the ones that have basically been forced to close in that regard. Each have got their own, you know, anyone who now has been forced to close, they've probably already done a lot of the major steps that they need to do that, but there's still a lot of issues, a lot of things they need to happen and move with that forced to close. Where if they've been dramatically affected, they're probably sitting back going, how long can I continue to trade for? Can I continue to trade, or are there other sources of income that I can actually receive or change my business model to do it all? So we're sort of seeing businesses in different stages of how it's currently impacting. By the day, by the week, they may change through some of those different areas, and each of them probably are dealing with things in different ways at this point in time, and probably don't have, some have more urgency, others have less urgency in how they're handling the matters at the time. In that regard.
Quite interesting to look at our local economy. Anybody who is servicing agriculture at the moment is probably, in some cases, going through a boom because farming is not stopping. And those people who are servicing major infrastructure projects like the Inland Rail, or involved in transport and getting things to supermarkets or big suppliers, they're also really working very hard. But there's some uncertainty as to how long that's going to continue for them. So in lots of ways, our businesses are in the regional areas are a little bit more insulated than certainly the metropolitan businesses who have got a very, very high service and domestic retail focus. And so in some ways, we're going to only have some sectors of our community that are going to be affected.
Whereas we also then have the sectors that are fully affected, and, you know, we've got areas that have had to shut down, unfortunately.
Yeah. One of the things that's really unusual about this time is, and how it's affecting different businesses, is that the government has really stepped in and exercising a high degree of control, and therefore businesses are facing a lot of uncertainty because they just don't know where they stand today. For example, lots of medical professionals are allowed to continue to trade, yet dentists aren't. We want pharmacists, they're going to have very low government control. They're allowed to stay open for longer hours so they can supply a broader range of products. So for them, they can actually build demand and increase their capacity because they're under lower restraints than what the government is placing on them. Yet the domestic area of retail sales where people are being sent home. Their customers are being told by the government not to come and see them, and so they're forced to tighten their belts, and we're seeing lots of our major suppliers and lots of our local retailers having to close their businesses. Anybody who's servicing manufacturing, of course, they're not manufacturing, building and construction, their businesses are continuing to travel along as normal.
Yeah,
So,
I had a hairdresser there today. I was just going to note that I was talking to on that side of it, and basically, you know, they've gone through that stage where, you know, they can only service customers for half an hour. Now that's been re-lifted, but they've got mixed messages about when people can actually go outside. It's, you know, only for essential items and things like that, but as hairdressing being put into that category. So you've got all those issues of people having the flow-on effect from the government influence, but people are creating that uncertainty whether they can or can't.
So we see there's a number of phases business is going to go through. We're in phase one at the moment. High uncertainty, high volatility. A lot of the volatility is being caused by government decisions and lack of confidence in the market as to who's allowed to go to work and who's not allowed to go to work. Where is that going to be? And we probably expect this is going to be around for the next 2 months until they know that they've got the virus under control and the spread of it is restricted. Then what we'll probably see is the government will be reluctant to release people to the marketplace. And so therefore we can see restrictions on people's business activities being sitting in a bit of a lull for probably 3 to 6 months after that. Now, that doesn't mean business won't be allowed to continue, but if any outbreak pops up, then we're likely to have the brakes re-put on us, but we won't be encouraged to go hell for leather like we expect. And then probably after 6 months, then we see a transition to recovery. And really, this is a great opportunity for us to start thinking in advance. So what we did was, based on our conversations with customers, we've identified what they're going to do over these 3 phases. Currently, and I think I'm not going to go through all the points here, but currently we've got a whole heap of people who are, every day is different. They're firefighting, there's knee-jerk reactions, and usually based on shallow thinking. And I'm not saying they're not considering what they're doing, but they have to deal with the emergency of the situation now rather than where they'd like their business to be going in the long term. So they're having to make short-term compromises quickly to react to changing sales and behaviour and different government decisions. And, you know, there's lots of confusion, lots of stress, lots of high emotion. Where we hope, and lots of strategy and a lot of work that needs to be done right now, and lots of people needing to talk. Certainly Andrew and I, our phones have been running hot for about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks now, where people just not sure about what's the right decision and having to adopt new technologies. My comment that one of the things I would stress here is there's a big push to push everybody online to do online sales. Fortunately for some, that's a real option, but many businesses, their businesses are either too big, they've got too big a product range, they don't have the expertise inside their businesses or systems, and so they're constantly getting hounded, well, why can't you do the online environment? And they actually don't have the processes yet to be able to adopt and do that effectively. And it's a real weight that they're carrying on their back. The next phase, the lull, is where we'll be in some sort of norm. There may be actually a little bit more customer behaviour because the customers will have been through their restrictive period at home, and they may come out because they need to buy new things. But this is the time when you get a chance to actually reflect and see what new systems or systems you've had to adopt. Are they part of where you want to really take your business in future? You know, are there new patterns of customer behaviour? This is where you want to keep your team focused and can improve their skills. So it's opportunity to training and start to think about the recovery phase. And then of course the recovery, I think the key element of any recovery is to make sure you focus on your profitability, consolidate the changes that you've actually put into your business, and make sure that you protect your cash flow so that you can grow your business and start rebuilding your team. But there are three really quite different stages. Do you have any comment, Andrew?
Probably what's important about all these three stages is each different business is going to be in different stages. You've got the people that are shut down. They're really in some ways down the lull phase. And how do they keep their customers re-engaged so that when they do ready to roll and start up again, they've basically got a customer base ready to roll. So whereas a business that doesn't actually need to go to shutdown, it's probably just business as usual, or in some ways, or they've had some slight effect on it. The way they're already still dealing with their customers, but how do they make sure they pick up on any momentum or look at other issues that they can do to where they want to be down that period? Just like the uncertainty phase, some businesses have, had to go do and do all our knee-jerk reaction firefighting, where others have just, all they had to do is change their technology, learn how to use Zoom, learn how to, make sure the computers can work at home, et cetera, et cetera. So every business is different and has got those different things in those different phases that we see and what's happening. And what probably we can't emphasize enough is just once you've got one settled down, you then probably need to be then working on the next phase and working through that period of how, where to, what to do next with our business and re-energize as you're dealing with crises as they pop up with the change in government laws. Just like the announcements we had last night, a decision you made last week to stand staff down could now be different now that you're getting $1,500 a fortnight. How does that now affect you compared to what you were deciding last week to what you would now do tomorrow, etc.?
Some of the smaller businesses that we're dealing with that have either been forced to close, and some of them aren't smaller, just as a matter of interest, have really said that in this phase of the lull until they're allowed to reopen, they're concentrating on how they're going to communicate with their customers. So they are being very active in social media. They're constantly posting stories about what their staff are doing, about new products that they see are going to come along, just engaging and telling the story about their customers. So they're looking at different ways to make sure that they're relevant to their customer base when they have the opportunity coming back. They're not willing to allow no activity from their business because they don't want somebody else to take their customers away. So each business needs to think about what the customer engagement phase is in each one of them, because without customers, our business don't survive. So we've put together a process for people to look at their businesses, and we adopt this process based upon, started off trial and error, but there's a bit of systemizing of what we've been doing, and part of it's part of the handouts that you will receive from today. We look at a basic framework in whether it's a short-term issue, whether it's a long-term issue, whether you're in the lull or whether you're in the recovery, or whether you're just dealing with the day-to-day announcements. We make an assessment and encourage our clients to look about where they are now, but where do they need to get to as a result of this action? Are they forced to put staff on, or are they not? How are they going to go about doing that? Are they allowed to keep their doors open? Are they allowed to have customers in their doors or not? We have the NRMA still operating below us every day. They can only do telephone inquiries, but anybody who comes to the door, they can't allow them in the business. So they're figuring out ways at which they can deal with them. So their now situation is nobody's allowed to access the premises, but what they want to do is continue the service, and they've figured out how they're going to do it and how they can help customers who turn up to the door. So they're finding their way through it, and you've got to apply this methodology for each step. The second part is to develop scenarios. So what's a scenario? A scenario is a situation that you think might happen. And the key to this is to actually describe the event and define it so that it's relevant to what suits your business best, the industry in, and our local environment. So thinking about scenarios that affect people in Sydney aren't relevant to you. And usually what we're saying to people is pick 3 different scenarios. 1, low severity. If nothing happens, what's the minimal impact on your business? What happens if there's a significant impact, a medium severity, or what's going to happen in a severe process? And mapping that out is really clear. And in the handout we've provided, we've given you some tips around how to go through each one of those stages. The thing about scenarios is make sure you fit it into your environment. So there are political influences, legal influences, social impacts. People are now reporting people turning up to businesses if there are too many of them getting out of a car. So the social impact is hard to imagine. So you've got to think about how you can control that. We then identified that there are 9 areas in your survival plan that you've got to look at. The first column, customers, team, and your personal well-being are all about people. And the more we understand our team, how they can help our customers, the more we understand our customers, it's the better for our team as to how they can service them. But equally, we've got to make sure we're looking after our own personal health and well-being. The second stage is about our cash flow, predominantly. How do we make our money, our costs, and our funding? And the last area is about our service. What products and service we're doing, who in our supply chain, how they're going to affect us, and then how do we manage our production and delivery to our customers. So in the sheet that we've provided you, there is a whole series of questions in each category of the 9 steps for you to go through. What we've found with helping clients that are going through the very first phase of high uncertainty, we can't go to a great deal of depth in some of these areas. But once they've got their urgency program or plan worked out, we're then now looking at how do we move to the next phase, and deeper questions and more research and analysis of their client base is proving really fruitful in them developing the right strategy to go forward.
Probably critical there is basically each of these times, and probably where we have the different phases, the 3 phases you move through. The first one is you might do a prelim, and some of these things you're force closes. There's certain sections here that's not relevant, but you then need to, when you sit in the transition stage or that middle stage, you actually then sit down and start working through these of where and what you can do and where you can move forward to. And what David's done here is listed a lot of questions that he's put in there that he's asking in each of these sections, relevant, and really trying to get people to think, look deep and think a little bit broader. And probably we're making knee-jerk reactions today, but in 2 weeks' time, when you actually sit down and think about it a little bit more, some of those knee-jerk reactions will be disappeared. And if you think, you're going broader in what you're thinking and what you're looking at.
So with each of the questions, you've got to ask yourself, what's the issue or the impact or the reaction that may be caused by the coronavirus to these clients, in this particular case, to your customers, and how do I need to react to that, right? If you've got a large customer base, you can't make a personal contact to every single customer. But if you haven't identified who's your highly profitable customers and your key for your future, then you will come up with the wrong strategy going forward as to how you're going to engage with that customer. So, each one of these is prompting you to think more deeply about where you're going. What are the retention risks for your customers? Just looking at some of the questions we've got there. So that's there to help you work your way through what to do, and it'll help you develop different strategies and actions. And I think the action's the really important thing here. What are we going to do, and what are we going to tell our team, and how are we going to deliver it to our customers? So as we're getting close to time, and we want to do questions shortly, where do we see your short-term objectives? I think the very first thing is you've got to protect everybody from the virus. So help flatten the curve, reduce or remove any opportunity of infection on your staff, your customers and your community, because the more responsibility we're seeing with our customers, the easier it is for them to see that, for them to recognise we've got their needs at their best interest. The second part is we've got to keep our business operating. Support from the government's certainly been very helpful for that, but we've got to continue to service customers. We've got to protect our jobs of our staff, and we've got to ensure the financial viability of our businesses. And that financial viability may be that we still make a loss over this time period, but the loss is minimised by our actions. And certainly in the questionnaires that we've provided, there's lots of stuff you can do around your cost structure. And then the third thing is you've got to minimise the financial impact on your assets and reserves. Many businesses are saying, oh, I've got to throw everything I've got at it without going and talking to the financiers or their banks about what sort of support they can get, or their landlords. And you just got to make sure that you protect your assets and your business so that you can recover and not throw everything in right now. And I think the key there is lots of people are going to need advice as to what's the right decision going forward. So therefore, your actions for today: develop scenarios for your business, pick the one that's most likely going to impact you in the shorter term, seek some advice to confirm your thinking, talk to customers, talk to your bank, talk to your accountant or advisor, talk to your staff, see what they know is going on for your clients. Prepare budgets, and if you don't normally do a budget, this is a time when you've got to go and talk to your accountant and actually get a budget done so you understand that if this is the scenario, what's that impact of that scenario on your numbers, so you're not jumping at shadows and you can sleep at night knowing that this is what the likely outcome is. Make sure you monitor it and regularly. Figure out how you can figure out what's going on in your business. Do a review every day of the number of transactions or sales transactions done by the business every day. It may not be the value that's important, it's the number of customers that are coming in. Communicate your plan to your staff. You should have staff, financiers and stakeholders. I'm not sure how that fell off. And be prepared to adopt another scenario if conditions change. So if the government changes what you're allowed to do tomorrow, be prepared to jump to the next scenario. And certainly for those guys that have spent a bit of time in scenario planning, they're far better in responding to the needs of their customers. Okay, so as part of, just to wrap up today, thank you everybody for attending. I hope you found this valuable. We are providing every one of you a free consultation. So you either ring Andrew and I. The numbers are on the presentation you get sent out. Please use it. It is a genuine free offer to help you, because we've got lots of clients who we've spoken to. If you haven't had anybody to talk to, you're more than welcome to do that. If you can't get us on our mobiles, ring the office and talk to Fiona, or send us an email at solutions@businessdna.digital. Anyway, thank you very much. Hope this has been helpful, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks all.